City low-income housing is a good idea. Put it in the east end of the county and keep it out of my backyard.
Darren Spellman, Rancho Calaveras. I'll keep my comments brief. Mr. Wietrich brought up a good observation, one that didn't go on deaf ears, and I've been thinking of for quite some time, in regards to the percentages that are displayed in these things on how to decide and make decisions for people, which those decisions shouldn't be made for those property owners anyway. I don't care if 100% of the people voted for it and we knew exactly where they lived and those type of things. That's ridiculous. It's taking away people's rights constitutionally that they're entitled to. But beyond that, in terms of this electronic voting, Mike is right about the Brown Act, and he's also right about that anybody could vote on it. You could have an extreme activist group send out a blanket, a blanket email to all of their activist buddies across the country. You could have people from Massachusetts, Florida, Texas. You can have people in Russia voting over the internet to decide what's going to happen in Valley Springs because they send out all these emails to people that are going to flood it to change the percentage to what they want. And that is absolutely incorrect. And I think that the people have spoken today and said that they won't stand for this, and I hope that the board listens to this and votes against this. Thank you.
Andy Ballantyne, District 5, my first of 3 trips. Okay, don't frown at me.
The next two Andy should be bringing the board lunch.
Oh. No problem, Tom. We'll do anything you want. Can we influence your vote with lunch? Okay, I'm going to bring up a few things here, and I want to say that in Valley Springs, if you're going to change the face of Valley Springs, which it looks like that's what you're doing right now, at least change it to attract tourism to Valley Springs. You already have a Western motif in Valley Springs, and people are trying to change that. They want to take that away. So they want to convert Valley Springs to a high-density development area. And I think that we ought to be keeping our rural lifestyle in Valley Springs, and we ought to be building stuff to attract tourists to come to Valley Springs and come to Calaveras County and spend money. You know, we keep using the word consensus when we're doing all this planning. Consensus is a word, in my interpretation, it means I think. There's no fact associated with it, it's just I think. And they're using this here as like the Word of God. Oh, we took a consensus. This is what all the people want. Well, that isn't true. And I think that we should be going to a vote of the people. We shouldn't be doing electronic things and consensuses and all that. We, the people, we should decide how the areas that we live in should be developed. As property owners, we have the right to make that determination. Not government, not consultants, or not the Council of Governments. In the general plan, the community special plan should have precedence over land use. Existing developments and neighborhoods should not be rezoned to accommodate high-density development or smart growth. The only way that should be done is by a 2/3 vote of the property owners or a majority vote of the property owners. They're the ones that should decide what they want in their communities. As I've stated before, if you do not like our rural lifestyle, move to the city. There's a large selection to choose from. Government consultants, council of governments are making determinations for land use, and they don't live in the areas, but they're making all these determinations and planning. None of them have physically walked or surveyed the properties that they're trying to change. They just keep drawing maps. This process does not work, as evidenced by the equestrian pedestrian trails that were laid out by drawing lines on a map in the Rancho Calaveras development. None of them physically looked at the land. They just drew lines on a map, and I'm pretty sure that that's what's going on here. All they're doing, they're sitting up here, they're drawing lines on a map. They're not going out and looking to see what the land looks like. In Rancho Calaveras, there's some of those lots that are so steep that you can't do anything with them. And some of them, they can only accommodate so much. They came up with a land use for Rancho, which was RL. They were going to put 6 structures, 2-3 stories on a 1-acre lot.
You have 30 seconds left.
That's insanity. Just to finish, government is trying to make changes to communities without addressing the infrastructure, and Jeff brought that up before. They're not talking about the cost of putting in infrastructure associated with it. So in my view, if you're going to do a general plan thing, you ought to address the infrastructure first and then decide what you can put according to sewer and water and roads and et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else?
Yes.
My name's Al Duncan. I'm from Valley Springs. I'm going to change the topic a little bit from what they've been talking about. But this has been a drum I've been beating for over 20 years. Woe the plight of the realtors of Calaveras County. They try to eke out a living in the Rancho Calaveras area. Business is down by 75% due to the economy. The county doesn't like the idea of septic systems anymore. But see how many have failed lately with the new designs. Very few, if any, and most can be brought back to life with a revitalization. Now people hear that the county is going to allow 1 to 6 houses per acre. Wow, a bonanza. Little do they realize that there are no sewers, and the amount of bedrooms per residence is predicated by the size of the septic system allowed on the parcel. Let's see. 6 times 3 bedroom residences equal 18 bedrooms per acre. Impossible with the mindset they have today on how to dispose of the sewage. In Alaska, they flushed their toilets in permafrost. In Los Angeles and Wisconsin, where the water table is 3 feet, they can't even bury their dead. They flushed their toilets. There are mountain areas that flush their toilets on solid rock. But in Calaveras County, for the last 25 years, we've been using basically one septic company out of Oregon, Orenco. We've gone through the standard system, which was when I came here, then came the step system, then the ET system, then the mound system, then the deep trench system. And now they've come out with new ones that you can't even use in Calaveras County because the environmental health shuts you down. Change your thinking about waste disposal, and this county might become a vibrant, progressive place again, and without these pie-in-the-sky plans for existing parcels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Ed Anderson. Just a couple of comments. I'll be brief. not as long as Andy. I've been going to most of the meetings with COG, and I've seen all these buzzwords like, what do you call them? Sustainable, smart growth, different things like that. And not one time in the whole process have I observed any cost analysis study. So we don't know what you're looking at, if it's going to be sustainable. I don't know if you agree with me, and I'm not a financial expert, but with the changes made, you could have some serious problems. We know that Valley Springs doesn't have the infrastructure to support a lot denser area with population. We may at some point in the future, but all these predictions rather, they lead me with a lot of reservations about this whole scheme, and I have to look at it as a scheme. I'm under the impression that the residents and the citizens of Valley Springs proper want to remain with Plan E. If I'm not correct, please correct the residents of Valley Springs. I'm saying this not lightly, because last year in June, I started a petition, and it was for all the areas, and many of the Valley Springs citizens wanted to sign the petition. They wanted to be excluded from the proposed COG proposal for the Valley Springs Community Plan. And I submitted it in December, so I did work a long time on it. And I found that 9 out of 10 people that lived in Valley Springs that I approached signed the petition. So, I think, folks, when you make this decision, you've been hearing a lot of comments in this past year about the Valley Springs Community Plan and the whole region down there in Burson. I'm from Burson, and what COG had proposed to do, it's evolved to this point today. I think that I'm in the clear, but I'm not certain. I'm not certain about how the RL7, how that'll affect me, if what COG's if maybe they've already submitted some things on Burson and Wallace, et cetera. So I still don't know. I'll find out, and if I'm not happy with it, you can hear from me again. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson.
One passing. If any of the board would consider going back to the old 10 a.m. meetings, like it was in the county for years, I would appreciate that. I'll support any supervisor if they want to go back to the old 10 a.m.
Did you hear that, Mr. Tryon?
Well, if that's the case, then we need to move the meetings along a little faster, because I think last week it was 6:30 when we broke down.
I heard about that.
And if you looked at the agenda, we were supposed to be done before lunch.
And that was Black Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson.
Aren't you supposed to be in school?
Yes, I am, and it's embarrassing when one of my bosses is here. Parents, grandparents of my students, and I have to take a personal necessity day. But it is a good morning, because I don't have to have one of those $40,000 hysterectomies, so I think it's good. My name is Joanne Snyder Randall, and I'm here representing my mom. I am her trustee. I think my mom, Betty Snyder, is a pillar in the community. For 50 years, she and Dad supplied water to the Valley Springs Public Utility District at no charge. Well, they did receive a water line to their house. okay? But they also gave PG&E free right-of-ways across their property for power lines. I think my mom is one of the most generous people you'll ever meet. Now, my mom is in her twilight years, and she's generously given away everything she owned, except for one 5-acre commercial property on Lime Creek Road. At the time of Dad's death, this property had to be appraised. A professional appraiser appraised it at $305,000 in the spring of 2008. The federal government accepted this appraised value. If this property is to be downgraded to agriculture, I, as her trustee, will order another appraisal and a bill for the difference between the $305,000 and the new downgraded agricultural appraisal will be given to the county. Hopefully, it's paid promptly. I wonder, and this is a question, of changing the land use and zoning is to downgrade its value so that when the proposed bypass goes through, government doesn't have to pay the full market value for commercial property. I consider it a shame for all my mom has done for Calaveras County. Do you think that the county could bear to let her keep a piece of commercial property that she has paid with her own money and has been paying taxes on all these years? Please do not take away my mother's means of security and retirement plan. And now, I'm representing myself as a landowner and my sisters who are landowners who didn't receive or weren't selected few to receive notification.
Joanne, can you hold just 1 minute before we get into that then? Can we go back a few slides to the circled area that had Lime Creek and commercial? Is that 5-acre parcel that your mother owns within this red here? Mm-hmm. Okay, and so go forward. One more. Go to the map that you're presenting today. See, it's within where it's now being changed to ag.
That's correct.
Is that the area you're talking about? Okay. Sure.
Why? She can do it herself, Ron.
I just saved you $40.
You'll have to ask her that.
You'll have to, yeah.
Actually, no, that 5-acre parcel isn't in that part that is zoned, that is colored red right there. Those two parcels right there that are there, that is the Mini Mart, and that's Neil Shannon's garage. That red line should go past where that roundabout is up there. That is all zoned commercial up to that point. Actually, that 5-acre parcel we're talking about is in the middle of where that roundabout is drawn.
So can we go back to the slide that showed from the very beginning? I think it was probably the first map that you put up that showed, go back right there. That's still not.
No, that there better represents what is there, but I think that the property that is to the east of there is a piece of property that belongs to Soletto family, and I think it does have a little bit of different zoning right there on the east side of that. But that actually, it shows a creek coming down through that RR property, and where that 5-acre parcel is just to the left side of that creek is where it's at.
Okay. So that map shows commercial zoning that's existing somewhat today, and your 5-acre parcel, Betty's 5-acre parcel is within that.
Yes, it is. And that shows commercial property all the way back to Highway 12 and 26,
Right.
all the way down Lime Creek Road. And the other map that you're looking at only shows 2 parcels on the
Right.
west side of that.
Okay. I just wanted to get that clear in my mind where the 5 acres was, so, thank you.
It's hard to get it clear in your mind.
Well, wait a minute, I'm inside this mind. Have you been
I
in here?
apologize. I didn't mean it like your mind, Gary. I meant my mind and Ron's mind. Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions because we're confused on the maps, or the maps are confusing.
It's difficult without having the individual parcels up there to determine on these maps.
Yeah,
so.
really.
Okay, would you like to continue?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That doesn't constitute any of our 5.
I didn't, I took it off, I stopped it, and then I ran the clock back when our husband talked.
Thank you. The conditions written within the Caltrans grant and the implementation of the fund transfer do not represent the wishes of the Valley Springs Township, as evidenced by the vote of 205 people choosing Map E, a boundary map approved by COG in the original multiple choices of maps A, B, C, D, and E during the August 27, 2009 clicker workshop. The Valley Springs ballot survey also rejected 1, high-density develop, and 2, rural smart growth. These issues have been ignored and would void the purpose of over 61 over 61-page COG questionnaire, which was mailed out after the Valley Springs ballot vote and survey ballot were presented on April 13, 2010. I want you to note that 217 participants within Valley Springs Township voted, and 216 participated in the general plan workshop, representing the county population of 44,000. That's a significant vote when you consider that COG, myvalleysprings.com, Local Government Commission, Calaveras County Community Development Agency couldn't garner more than 1% from Valley Springs, and they were the project partners utilizing $255,810 to ensure public participation. What's extremely important is the enormous investment in real estate of the landowners of Valley Springs. These are the taxpayers. And yet, our property rights and investment have been resorted to a questionnaire that will be determined electronically. We know that people outside the Map B area have been sent postcards, so we're back to a secret ballot and a consensus that COG needs to justify the grant and the Valley Springs Community Plan, community values and priorities. How can you justify these community values from people who have voted and removed themselves from the present boundaries? You are also using data that does not represent Valley Springs. It's obsolete. You have no consensus from the 1% who represented Valley Springs, and that's according to the consultant's percentage chart. Where's your documentation that you have consensus? The only documentation is the recent ballot vote from 217 Valley Springs Township residents. You cannot deny their participation. They do not want smart growth. COG's consensus deprives Valley Springs citizenry of free choice. This process has been distorted, and Valley Springs has been betrayed and exploited.
Ms. Lund, you have 30 seconds left.
Okay. You're sacrificing our property rights for a vision for a Valley Springs community plan that we don't want. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm back. My name is Valentino from Valley Springs. Just observing here, it seems to me that the board should be listening to people from Valley Springs rather than these guys. The reason why is because there's so many inconsistencies with the maps. Nobody here really can tell you what's going on, and that creates uncertainty. It's all through the room. It's not going to go away, and it's only going to get worse. Who the board should be doing really is dealing directly with the people, because that's who you're dealing with anyway, through them or not. So the best way to deal with the people directly is to go to the people directly. You should, The council would have been great if they went to Valley Springs and says, form a board. We want to hear from you. You know, now, when it comes to drawing up a map, these gentlemen and these women, they can tell you exactly whose parcel is whose. There's not going to be no misunderstandings. People come in from the outside, that already creates suspicion, because that's happening all over the country. People are coming in to run people's lives, and it's true. You can try to discount it, but it's becoming more and more real. I can see it here. My wife and I have property in Half Moon Bay. They rezoned us from agriculture to residential. They divided us up in 18 different parcels. Our taxes went up $6,000 a year, and we went to build on them to make something out of it. They were legally too small to build on. Now, we went through court for that, and we lost. Now, that's taxation without representation, was completely tyrannized, 100%, and I'm telling the gospel truth. We had another piece of property in Hayward, downtown Hayward, completely rezoned. We lost out. You know, our residential homes up there were great, but we lost out on a big chunk of our retirement. I'm seeing it happening here again. So I'm speaking from down and out experience here on 2 different counties, and we got more property in other counties. And I see just as much going on here right now, negative, as I've seen in our own experiences. And it's not going to get any better, I'm going to tell you. Because you should be talking to Ron Randall, Gene over here. These are the founding fathers, practically, who came up from there. They're the ones who know the terrain. They know what the people really want because they are the people. When you get somebody from out of the area, right away, that's going to create so much darn suspicion. They're already suspicious. They suspect things here. From the council, I'm just being straight up. Then the council gets somebody between us and them by putting somebody else in that doesn't belong. That creates more suspicion. Why couldn't the council talk to the founding people living in Valley Springs who deal with it every day, live there every day, like you do? We shouldn't be talking to people from the outside and they're making decisions for all these people who have got the historical backgrounds that we respect so much and we talk so highly of, but we don't listen to them. There's too much of that going on, and these people are not just giving up, walking off the rock. They're here fighting to keep our history going from these people that you are listening to, when you should be talking directly to them. Now you've got the trust of the people, and you know, that's where the power comes from. And it never will change from that, I hope. But this is ridiculous. I see, right now, if I was the board, I'd say, let's just cancel everything, scratch everything, bring it down to nothing, and let's talk to the people, because these people are not your true representation. And that is the gospel, honest truth. Thank you.
Hi, Marty Crane. I'm sure you can hear me even if I don't yell, so we'll just try to be calm. That's okay. It just gets a little... I just like to say that...
Shh, please, Ms. Crane has the microphone.
I would just like to say that I have been to many, many meetings, and that some time ago, quite some time ago, we were advised that we needed to form a community plan for the Valley Springs area, or we would not be considered. So some people took up the challenge, others didn't. For whatever reason, maybe their family life keeps them too busy, their work keeps them out of town, whatever, for whatever reasons. But there was huge outreach. And so it cannot be dismissed, the fact that many people made a concerted decision not to get involved, for whatever reason, valid or not, whatever, could be just busy lives or not interested. And then when you start to hear decisions are being made by those that did get up and come to the process, and you don't like it, then you come, and that's wonderful that you finally get involved and you come and make your voice heard. But it's also nice when it comes with respect for those that have carried the ball for you before you came. I hear an awful lot today about, don't be speaking for the people of Valley Springs. You know, you don't live in Valley Springs. Well, just a little point of fact. A few years back, we were all in the general Valley Springs community. And they drew a line on the map when they redistricted and said, don't worry, it's just a line. It's still your community. So a lot of us still feel like Valley Springs is our community. That's where we shop. I shop. That's where we meet our neighbors, and it's our community. And we need to support it because it supports us. However, now that the line has been effectively drawn and redrawn recently by a certain number of citizens in Rancho that expressed their opinion about not wanting to be part of this community plan, we are now effectively not part of Valley Springs, although I'm still going to support it. Anyway, I keep hearing, don't speak for Valley Springs. Well, I see an awful lot of people here having an opinion about it, and they don't live in Valley Springs. They live in Campo Seco, they live in Burson, they live here, they live there, but they're all coming here to speak for Valley Springs. And at the same time saying, don't be speaking for Valley Springs if you don't live in Valley Springs. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Also, I'd like to say that long before COG came, an effort was being made, grassroots, just people like myself that only wanted to see a nice plan go, because the short time that I've been here in 20 years, and that's a short time, it has changed so dramatically. And usually something would just pop up and we go, how did that happen? Well, it had been going on for quite a while, but we didn't know, and then boom, all of a sudden change happens. Well, this was an opportunity for the public to know about things before they just showed up on our door. And I thought that was the whole idea of planning ahead. Granted, the process, has been extremely difficult. There were times when we forgot that we were friends and neighbors and had to come back to that. There were, in trying to address the concerns of this big group over here, maybe some things over here didn't get heard until later, and by that time things had been listed on this map or whatever, and we're going, okay, we need to change that. Or everybody threw their ideas into a pot, and it's not up to me to sift them out, or COG or anyone else to sift them out. You work them through, and then maybe a few things just kind of go away because they were not valid or just didn't work out. But there are certain people like to hang on to those things and say, you're still doing that. It's still valid. You're doing that to me. Well, no, those were ideas that your neighbors had that turned out to not work out. But yet they're still being thrown up there. And I'm just having a difficult time here with all the attacks on the people that are trying to do this with us, and people trying to get a lot of mileage out of attacks. For instance, I would really like to clarify one thing. This is issue of the car,
Marty, 30 seconds.
Okay, they're driving around in a $30,000 to $40,000 Prius or whatever it is with the skin on it, and making it sound like it's at taxpayer dollars. As I understand, that car was purchased, and I'm understanding that this is true, that car was purchased through a grant through rideshare and is supposed to be driven around the county to promote carpooling, to help ease the burden on our roads. And so to attack and say that it's being driven around for all of that, and I will wrap this up, I'm just a little disappointed that the efforts of those that came before us and are trying to pull everyone's ideas together, and it is not perfect, are not being acknowledged. So I would like to say thank you to everyone who's brought a solution to the table, or a piece of a solution.
Thank you, Marty.
They weren't clapping for you, Mike, they were clapping for me.
Could you go back to your full view of option 2, please? I didn't bring any props.
There goes a vote.
There you go. Good morning. My name is Mike Del Orto. I'm from McCallamy Hill. I own absolutely no property within that map zone whatsoever.
Would you like to buy some?
Although my maternal grandfather...
We have some commercial property we'd like to sell.
with a bridge on it, right?
Yeah.
My maternal grandfather was born up there in the corner in the park that's now RA, right along the road, and later moved to the old town. I have a lot of friends that live down there and people that own a lot of property, and I have a lot of respect for. I have a vision. That's how this whole thing started out, as a vision. And a lot of people are attracted to the idea of, well, we get to plan for the future. Then there was fear that somebody's going to tell me what to do with my land. I want out. Rancher wanted out. I look at this thing and I say, well, I have an interest in this because Valley Springs, besides having some historical connections, is also the gateway to the rest of our county from our principal point, from our principal areas of commerce to the west. So I have a concern about what goes on there, but also I have a concern about the general sense seems to have been, and I went to quite a few of those meetings. I'm watching the clock. I went to quite a few of those meetings, and I thought it was interesting that I might have voted once, but I went to several meetings because I wanted to see who the participants were, and there was a number of people just like me that kept going, but they kept voting. It was kind of fun to participate in designing somebody else's property. But a couple things stand out to me. One is we're isolating the old town and almost giving it a death wish by isolating it up here, the little yellow part there. Valley Springs over this way to the edge of where it says RA is already being developed in 5-acre portions. And if you're going to have a plan that is presumably for 20 years, you haven't provided any growth for 20 years. You've provided a plan that says, let's just stick our heads in the mud and let it be there. So I would, that concerns me. Another thing that concerns me from McCallamy Hill and the rest of the county is the top of that map is not included in the community plan. That's the Coe property and a lot of the Snyder property. And that was one of the major pieces of ground that we have zoned M4 or M1. It's industrial, and I think it would get more protection from being within the community plan than not being within the community plan. That's my personal opinion. But I would sum up and say, you know, the COG and all the people that worked and everybody participated and went to the meetings and helped make that go have been helpful. They've been helpful for no other reason than causing people to think about this and understand this. My suggestion would be that the zoning is a problem because right now nobody is kind of like, what does that really mean? We're going to take 125 designations and go down to 25. Do I fall out here or do I fall out there? Am I going to be included? That's a problem. That's one problem. The other problem is it's your responsibility to do the planning. And I think it would be my recommendation that you accept the maps from the COG, thank them very much for their time they put in and all the energy, which they did, a great deal, and get them out of the picture with their advisors out of the picture and get it back in your camp. Right. And in McCallamy Hill, when we did our community plan, you'll notice that the submittal we did had almost no changes. The approach we did was we started out with a vision briefly, And then we talked to the owners of the land and asked them for their vision. So that community plan represents the vision of the property owners as it was designed. And that's why it holds in McCallum Hill. I would suggest that now that you have this vision, that you go back and work with the property owners as to what they see, how their property fits in for the next 20+ years. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Gary Glavinovich. I signed in earlier. I do not live in Valley Springs. My wife's family has owned the Castle Rock property since circa 1885. It's been in our family. We've always kept it rural, excuse me.
You kept it real, too, so.
Yeah. We understand the significance of Castle Rock to the community, that it's an icon. In our hearts, we don't ever want to change it. For the last, it's got to be 50, 75 years, we've had an oral lease with the Snyder-Randall people, and they run their cattle on the property. In the 1974 Valley Springs plan, the Castle Rock area was designated as a residential land use, and I understand the difference between use and zoning. It's zoned presently rural residential, and the eastern end is agricultural. My wife and I and other members of my family met with Mr. McSorley, and we met with Tyler, I can't remember his last name now, but we had several meetings with them. We submitted a letter to them. I think copies went to the board. We can live with the rural residential designation of the property, as I believe is in option 2 of what's been submitted. We also, the property extends westerly of Cosgrove Creek, and there's, I think, a little connection to Paloma Road, and whatever that current zoning designation is, we can probably live with that. I think it's different than the residential rural. It may be a little bit more than that.
Can I hold you up for 1 second?
Sure.
Can we go forward to the map that you presented today? Your property there, you're saying the RR designation just outside, just past the trailer park. Yeah, you can go up there.
Yeah, we're in this area on the other side of Cosgrove Creek, but then up in the back, I can almost reach that, back up in that way, we're touch Paloma Road.
So something
The Calvary Chapel is below us, and then they up to us on the northerly portion of the property. There's just a small portion that attaches.
Is any of that property under contract, Williamson Act contract?
We have none.
You have none? Okay.
So the property that's north of the highway, we can live with that designation. There is a portion of the property that was divided by when the state took over Highway 12, the extension, that is on the south side, and that's, some of it might be adjacent to Joanne's property. And when we met with the people at the Council of Governments, we expressed an opinion that the property south of the highway should be zoned commercial, because it made sense. Whether or not Valley Springs ever expands to that area to have a commercial area that's vibrant, I do not know. I get the sense from the people here at the meeting that they're a little bit opposed to growth. And so I don't see Valley Springs becoming a major commercial center, but at least for purposes of future development, that would seem to be appropriate, that the things on the south side of the highway make sense to be zoned commercial. I think I've covered all the points that I want to. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Randall, you had something you had to say?
Yes, I think that I'm not certain that he understands that maybe this is only showing one of his...
Ron, can you walk up here and talk into the microphone?
Yes. I'm not certain that he understands that gray-colored part there that's marked RR. He actually has two more parcels, one above that and one to the east side of that. And I don't know, he said that he would accept what is here, but I don't know. I think that those other two parcels had a different land use and are being changed to ag. And I don't think he realizes that.
If I could address that.
Yes.
Thank you, Ron. When we met with Mr. McSorley and Somerset, one of the things that we expressed was that we didn't want the property to be gerrymandered, to be a portion of it put in one designation and another portion put in another designation, at least as to the property that was on the north side of the highway. And that was one of the concerns that we expressed to Mr. Somerset and Mr. McSorley when we met with them, because we looked at the maps that we had, and that didn't seem to indicate all of our property as Mr. Randall has indicated. And that's one of the problems that I've gotten from listening to other people, is that these maps aren't that specific, and so you can't tell how much of your property is involved. And if that's the case, what Mr. Randall said, that there's two other parcels that are north of that, we could live with it all being rural residential. Whether that ever happens or not, we don't know. So that's what I'll say on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Mickey Williamson, and I live in Murphy's, and I have been no part of the Valley Springs Community Plan. I just want to make sure everyone knows that I have not been to the meetings, I have not voted. It's not my job to do so as someone who lives in the Murphy's area. But I did want to make a couple of comments about process of this plan as I know it, and as in the planning in the county as a whole, and to ask a question, which I probably won't be here to get the answer for because I have to leave very soon. First of all, I just wanted to express some gratitude, first of all, to all of you who sit up here every week and listen to and receive all that is brought before you. It is a heroic task and a true community service, and I really appreciate all of you for that. Second, I really want to appreciate the fact that when we began the general plan update process, and even though there was some dissenting opinion about whether the community plans should be updated concurrently or at a different time, I appreciate that those communities who were most challenged in either lack of or outdated community plans were given the okay to go ahead and proceed, even though the county said, we don't have the resources to support you in that process. You're kind of on your own, but you can go ahead. And I appreciate those people that stepped up in District 2 and in San Andreas and in Copperopolis and in Valley Springs to take on that task, which is a daunting task, as we've seen. And I know some of the folks in Valley Springs who were there in the beginning of that, who educated themselves, who put their time and energy into getting the process off the ground, who provided some excellent educational opportunities for the community by bringing in people who had some expertise, who found some funding to make it possible to have some of the support services for their process. And I really applaud the time and the energy and the courage that it has taken to do that. Obviously, as we have seen, it's not an easy process. It's a messy process, and it's not a finished process. And one of the things that that I wanted to ask was, I was understanding perhaps that what is actually before you all to decide is whether or not you will work with this map as you go forward in trying to incorporate into the general plan, or whether it would be the old Valley Springs existing plan by default, because there were yet some unrefined things about this map. And it seems to me that I've heard planning say that they are going to be meeting with community leaders in all of the community plan areas to work out some of these things that are not finished. And it seems to me that if it's the choice between a new plan that still has some difficulties or an existing very outdated plan that probably has even more difficulties, that if the county's going to be working with something, it seems to me that it would make most sense to work with what actually reflects what is there in the county and what people of the county have said they want. It may not be that everyone in the community has agreed with it, but it has been citizens of Valley Springs that have been working on this plan. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mickey Williamson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. I'm Penny Sarvis. I'm also from Murphy's, and I also have not been involved in the Valley Springs community plan. But I wanted to echo a couple of comments that were made in appreciation. One time after we were in Murphy's, people from Interior said, we like working in Calaveras County because when we go to other counties, 5 or 6 people show up. And that's all who's involved in these processes. And we go to Calaveras County, and dozens and hundreds of people show up. And so I think it's a tribute to the process, however difficult it has been, that people in the county have shown that kind of commitment and passion. So I want to appreciate everyone who has participated in this process from whatever point of view, because it is a livelier process than occurs most places. I also want to say that I do appreciate the fact, as I remember it, that communities were invited, certain communities were invited to go ahead with community plans, and that the county supported that, but often could not provide financial support, and so Valley Springs, some people in Valley Springs went out and got that support and initiated a process which was then turned over to other citizens. So it seemed to me that there is a debt of gratitude to the people who got it off the ground so that we are even in a position to meet here and consider something like these maps with this size of a crowd. And I also wanted to say that although I participated in my own community meetings, I did come over to Valley Springs a number of times early on because there were such interesting educational meetings that were open to everyone. It was made known to us throughout the county, and so I came over to a number of those things, had some very good Thai food, and went to the meetings at the school and learned to read maps for the first time and learned about planning for the first time, and that was a gift to the rest of the community from those people who entered in early on to the plan for the Valley Springs Community Plan. So in some ways, it feels to me like what Valley Springs has done has been a model for how you engage a community, and I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Infacino. I'm here on behalf of the Calaveras Planning Coalition. I would like to thank COG for their efforts in getting us to this point in the process. It has not always been smooth, but it has always been thorough. I would also like to thank the Planning Department for its patience in waiting for us to get to this point in the process. And finally, I would like to thank you supervisors for considering the latest Valley Springs Community Plan map for inclusion in the general plan update through this very preliminary choice of the preferred alternative. As you know, the map has been thoroughly vetted by local property owners during the extensive community plan process in Valley Springs. The Calaveras Planning Coalition supports a comprehensive update of the Calaveras County General Plan with full public participation. We have supported the community plan update process in San Andreas and throughout District 2. Similarly, we support the community plan update process in Valley Springs and encourage you to follow the map guidance it has produced. We discourage you from defaulting to include the 1974 Valley Springs Community Plan as the preferred alternative at this time. As you know, the 1974 Valley Springs Community Plan will be evaluated in the General Plan EIR as the no-action alternative. The Calaveras Planning Coalition supports review of a broad spectrum of alternatives in the General Plan EIR and fiscal assessment. When you do that, you will get some of that valuable information about the infrastructure constraints people have raised today. And that information will be critical for you to make a good final decision on the general plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Holly Mines, and you all know that I'm not from Valley Springs either. And I just wanted to observe that if I've counted correctly, there have been 16 speakers, including myself, and only 5 people actually live in Valley Springs, if I've counted correctly. So I just want to echo the comments that have been made of others about the process and the attempt to come up with something that will work for the community of Valley Springs, just as those of us in outside communities have attempted to find some way of voicing what our needs are for our part of the community. And I wanted to comment on the issue of, I also credit people for taking the time to come to public hearings and make